This is TLS coming at you live from computer science, and today we will be talking about the threat landscape. So first up, a phishing attack. This is when the attacker will disguise itself as a reputable organization through email, and the goal is to learn login credentials or account information. Now, the victim will receive a message with an attachment or link that will install malware or direct them to a link, and this link will trick them into divulging personal and financial information such as passwords, account IDs, or credit card details. Now, as you can probably tell, phishing is a homophone of phishing, which involves using lures to catch fish, which is sort of what the hacker is doing at this point. And this form is popular because it's simpler than trying to break through a computer's defense. Now, in terms of prevention, one can inspect all URLs carefully to see if they redirect to an unknown website, and they should also look out for generic salutations, grammar mistakes, and spelling errors scattered throughout the email, as shown in the Amazon email above. DDoS attacks, otherwise known as distributed denial of service attacks, are when somebody uses a program such as a Trojan to flood a server of a victim to make this victim unable to an online service. And an example of this would be in gaming, how some players would experience lag from being DDoSed from other players. And you can see this happening in the images above. Next, CPM, or cross-platform malware. Now, CPMs are harmful malware that are capable of functioning across multiple operating systems, such as Linux, Windows, and Mac OS X. They act as normal malware as they hide in files and downloadables. However, they are loaded with specialized payloads and components that allow them to run on multiple OSs. Even worse is that it's becoming more popular as more people are shifting between platforms, and thus the economic incentive is increasing. Now, APT, or Advanced Persistent Threat. Now, this kind of attack happens when unauthorized personnel gain access to a network and stay there undetected for as long as possible. This is used in cyber, corporate, and intelligence espionage. Now, the goal is to steal data, and they do this in sectors such as national defense, manufacturing, and financial and technological companies. The hackers do this through spear phishing, which is an email spoofing attack that targets a specific organization or individual seeking unauthorized access to sensitive information. As with emails used in regular phishing expeditions, spear phishing messages appear to come from a trusted source. Now, in the case of spear phishing, the apparent source of the email is likely to be an individual in a position of authority or from someone the target knows personally. An example of this would be how United States Military Academy professor and National Security Agency official Aaron Ferguson called it the Colonel Effect. He sent out a message to 500 cadets asking them to click a link to verify grades, and this message appeared to come from a Colonel Robert Melville of West Point. Over 80% of the recipients clicked the message, and in response they received a notification that they'd been duped and warning that their behavior could have resulted in downloads of spyware and other malware. Now, although APT attacks are difficult to identify, the theft of data can never be completely invisible. So, detecting anomalies in outbound data is perhaps the best way for an administrator to discover that his network has been the target of an APT attack. Metamorphic and polymorphic malware. Metamorphic malware is malware that completely changes itself from iterations within its code to prevent it being detected by antivirus software. Polymorphic malware is the same, as it also uses iterations. However, the difference between the two is that metamorphic malware changes it as a whole, while polymorphic malware has parts that stay the same. And an example of polymorphic malware would be how an encrypted virus program body. SQL injection attacks are tactics used against databases where a malicious SQL, or standard query language, statement is injected into an entry such as user input when they are trying to log into the database. By doing this, the SQL query to run against the database and thus be able to access it. The first image of code you see is the normal query that is run against the database when a user inputs their username and password. However, the SQL query inputted changes the uname and passwd variables to strings seen as username and password. This allows the attack to do multiple things, such as manipulate the database as well as the user's account. Malvertising is when somebody makes an advertisement online that contains malicious software on it. When this is clicked, the malware has the ability to get into the system and cause users to download malware. An example would be when the New York Times had a rogue antivirus software ad on their page. Man-in-the-middle attacks, or MITM attacks as they're also known, occur when the perpetrator positions themselves into a conversation between a user and an application. The goal is to steal personal information such as login credentials, account details, and credit card numbers. This can be shown in image 1 when how the evildoer is obviously stealing money from the innocent web surfer. However, man-in-the-middle attacks can also be, as in image 2, where the perpetrator is there either to eavesdrop or to impersonate one of the parties, making it appear as if a normal exchange of information is underway. Either way, it's dangerous. So how exactly does this happen? Well, there are 2 stages. 1, interception, and 2, decryption. The first step intercepts user traffic through the attacker's network where it reaches its intended destination. And this is basically done by when an attacker makes free malicious Wi-Fi hotspots available to the public, and eventually the attacker gains full visibility to any online data exchange. Now, after interception, any two-way SSL traffic needs to be decrypted without alerting the user or application, and this is step 2, which is usually done through HTTPS spoofing. Ways to prevent man-in-the-middle attacks would be to make sure HTTPS is always in the URL bar of the websites you visit. Another would be to avoid Wi-Fi connections that aren't password protected, although, of course, this may be a bit tempting to some of us that have data plans. And lastly, not using public networks, for example, coffee shops and hotels, when conducting sensitive transactions are some good steps to take to avoid these attacks. The final attack method which we will talk about today is cross-site scripting, or XSS. Now, cross-site scripting is similar to SQL attacks as they are both utilized injecting methods. However, they differ in what they're injecting into. XSS methods input malicious browser scripts such as HTML to the user through the web application. This attack is most effective with web pages that do not encode output from user input. Because of that, it grants the attacker full access to session tokens and cookies within the browser that is linked to that page. And multiple types of XSS, such as stored XSS, reflected XSS, and DOM-based XSS are out there. And you can see this attack in the images above. Now, finally, these are our references, and thank you so much for listening in. This has been a TLS production, Threat Landscape. Thank you.